like and subscribe to the channel. You're gorgeous. To those people who found out their parent had a second secret family, how did you discover the truth? What happened afterwards? This happened to my wife's grandmother. She's still alive, in her 90s, and her father had a secret second family. They met at his funeral. When the secret wife saw the life this man had built and lived with his public wife, the secret wife said, "I always knew there was someone else, but I didn't know that I was the someone else." My cousin's dad, my uncle by marriage, had a secret family. He worked in Houston during the week and came home to the family in Hollingen, Texas on the weekend. It was kind of always a family joke between my cousins and her siblings. You know, like wouldn't it be funny if dad actually had a secret family and that's why he's never here? Then they found out it was true. A wife and 3 kids, just like my cousin, very similar ages. The two families had almost identical lives. My uncle had been married the whole time to both my aunt and this other lady. Everyone thought it was some sick joke when they found out. But nope. This happened to my wife's friend. The father was a fireman and his 2 daughters lived down the block. It turns out he had a second family, also with 2 daughters a few blocks away. The second woman knew he had a wife and kids, but they never told their daughters. The fireman did one of those safety talks in school and gave a hug to one of the daughters from the second family before he left. My wife's friend witnessed her father hugging a girl in another class and asked about it at dinner. Things went downhill from there. Not mine but a friend from work told me this story. Her sister married this guy who turned out to be having about 3 affairs. When she gave birth to their first son, the guy's mistress also gave birth about 2 weeks after. The idiot decided to name both of his sons the same first name. They both shared his second name. So about 3 years later his wife goes to get the birth certificate for her son and the lady in the office gives her the one which belongs to the mistress's son, which is how she found out about the whole situation. They're divorced now, and it turned out he guy has 11 children with 5 different women. Not me but my friend's mom had a DNA test done, and the results said she had a ton of siblings and cousins, which is weird because she had 1 brother, another adopted brother and no cousins. Turns out her mom was having trouble getting pregnant, so she went to see some really well-renowned specialist and then became pregnant. But all this doctor did was take some of the husband's sperm and mix it with his own, and then they would get pregnant. So he fathered a ton of children, many of whom probably still don't know. My dad was an abusive fuck towards my little sister, my mom, and I growing up, and just made things very hard for us, but treated us with lots of trips to the mall and vacations to make up for the abuse. Then slowly the vacations stopped, then the shopping sprees, and he would randomly come home late from work at weird times, but he has always had flexible hours, so it wasn't too off. Then one day my mom got a weird feeling and followed him out when he said he was going to get a drink with friends, and found him with his fiancée and her kid at a restaurant. After that he basically abandoned us and left us homeless. But it just hurt a lot knowing how well he treated his fiancée compared to my mom, and how much he respected the other woman, and he treated her kid better than us too emotionally, which was a huge fuck you to all of us. Really fucked us all up for a while. Mom dragged us all along to come with her to some parking lot. A woman comes out of her parked car, what I later found out was my half sister. They talk for a while and my mom gives her gifts. She comes back into the car and we're all questioning her as to who that is, and all she gives us is "That's your sister." She wouldn't answer anything else, and the course over a few weeks it turns out I'm the youngest of 7. And aside from my older brother and sister I've lived with all my life, I have 2 older half sisters and 2 other older half brothers who have been kept secret for 24 years. This happened last year, and I'm still recovering secrets kept from us. I'm the second secret family. My dad was married and had 4 sons. He really wanted a daughter and his wife couldn't have any more kids. He met my mom at work and they started seeing each other, and they had me all while my dad was still married. The weird thing is he never really kept me secret. I've always known his now ex-wife, who I also call mom, because half the time she was helping raise me, and I know all my siblings. None of us are very close, but I know who they are, and I see them every once in a while. My dad and his ex-wife got divorced the same year my mom broke up with him. This was when I was 10, but my dad and stepmom, I'll call her, still live in the same house because my dad has some health issues. They were staying together for the kids, which just made everything worse. My mom hates my stepmom and dad and almost didn't come to a bunch of things when I was a senior in high school because they would both be there. My stepmom tries to be civil with my mom, but my mom refuses to be nice to her even though she didn't do anything wrong. It really all just fucked up our family and no one is close to me or my parents. My brothers hate my dad more than I ever have. The whole wanting a daughter thing didn't work out too well for him considering we aren't close, because he fucked everyone over in the process. Not a secret family, as far as I know, but my dad got caught having multiple affairs with a few heroin addicts. Which is strange, because we're a upper middle class suburban family. He would always be leaving for emergency work calls, bailing the women out of jail. My mom found a random diamond necklace and couldn't get into their bank account. He had spent over $20,000 on treatment for the other women, so he locked her out of it. My sister finally found text messages, and so did my mother. One of the women was 3 years older than my sister and the other was my mom's age. The younger woman overdosed and died, but the other is still obsessed with my dad and has tried to come to our house. It's been a few years from the first time he was caught, and they just now separated after being caught texting the same women multiple times. I found out my stepdad fathered a child when he was a teenager and his parents were originally supportive, but eventually swept it under the rug because my stepdad didn't want to be a father. Apparently everyone in the family and town knew, just kept their mouth shut. I found out about all of this years and years later when my mom brought it up during an argument. Apparently the kid, who is now in his late 20s or early 30s, has a few years older than me, has made several attempts to meet my stepdad, but my stepdad still wants nothing to do with him. We all kinda pretend it never happened and don't mention anyone named Jordan around him. My husband mentioned that his dad was married once before he met his mom, and his first wife had a daughter while they were married, but he divorced her and claimed she wasn't his child. He was in the Air Force at the time, so I'm guessing maybe the timing was suspicious. My husband found out when he was in middle school because his ex-wife sent a graduation announcement for the daughter to him. So it seems like she wasn't under the same impression that the daughter wasn't his. I asked my husband for more information, but that was all he knew. His mom told him when he saw the announcement in the mail, but his siblings don't even know. His parents divorced when my husband was in college, and now he has a third wife and basically never talks to my husband. When I was 14, I found out from both of my parents that I had a sister just 6 months younger than me. Apparently my dad had cheated on my mom when she was pregnant with me, but they were able to work things out. I was pissed off for a while that they lied to me, but I get it now. No one in my family met her or had a relationship with her until I was 18 and decided that she should fly out to visit us. I'm glad we did that because now we all have peace of mind. She comes out once a year to visit now. Not technically a secret family because he didn't spend time with her, but a secret kid. Not really a secret family, but I found out my dad had a secret daughter. My mom and I knew her and thought she was just my cousin. Turns out my dad had an affair with his brother's wife. So she was kind of my sister and my cousin at the same time. She just showed up one day saying she came to visit and gave my dad a letter she had written. I never read it myself, but it was apparently very emotional, saying she hated knowing she was lying everyone. My mom didn't seem to be affected by it much, but my parents got divorced a year later. I think my uncle, who though she was his daughter the whole 19 years, took it the hardest. My father had a second family. When I was little kid, my father was away a lot because he was in the military. He deployed, and while deployed hooked up with another soldier and she got pregnant. Daddy came back and lived with mum after that like nothing was wrong. but he started to have to go away a lot for training, and mum got suspicious and found out there was no training, he was just staying at her house. She knew about us and didn't care and thought it was okay. In fact, she tried to talk to my mum about sharing him. He dipped out after that, and we never really saw him again. 20 years later, mum has a nice wife and live in the country and have a nice quiet life. Growing up in Jamaica, it was kind of normal for a man to have a second family. I was probably 5 years, only when I realized my mother, my sister and I were that second family. My father was always around, so it didn't feel like a secret or a shame. All my life I've known my dad's ex-wife. She accepted my sister and I. We called her Auntie Sylvia and she called us by our names, loved us and kissed us goodbye whenever we left her house. This was normal. One day I left my backpack at her house and Auntie Sylvia called my mother to let her know. I was in the other room when my mother hung up and rushed to call her friends to gossip about the call. She was surprised how nice Auntie Sylvia was to her, knowing about her and his kids. I later asked my mother if she didn't like Auntie because she didn't think she was nice. She sat me down and explained that Auntie was really Dad's wife and that was that. Years later my dad and Auntie divorced, and since then he's been married to my mother. This kind of always fucked me up, knowing my mother was the other woman, but knowing she got her man in the end. Like and subscribe to the channel. In the next video, I will hide the anaconda in the house of your annoying neighbors.